This movie was a kind of oddly controversial choice for us.
Yeah, we almost got into a fight.
No, we got into several fights. Don't downplay it.
We definitely got into a fight. I was arguing against it. It was mostly on my side.
Yeah, I think like the main worry that you had to be, just to clarify, is you didn't want the podcast to be just us listing off jokes and being like, hey, remember when Stryker does the dance scene?
Right. I didn't want us to be giggling this entire podcast.
Yeah, which we will get out of our systems,
Yeah.
We're going to cover that.
I think to reassure the audience, this is not going to be like an academic study of this movie.
Yeah, exactly. Just also because we're not going to take it too seriously.
I think it makes total sense why people want us to react to this, because this seems like perfect for us to react to because of all the Mel Gibson movies that we've done and the Monty Python movie.
Mel Brooks.
No, I meant it.
Mel Gibson. Because we were doing Mad Max and Braveheart.
Passion of the Christ, yeah. Jesus Christ. No,
all right.
No pun intended. Jesus Christ. Anyways, I think it's fair to mention that we're going to be doing an after show after this.
Yes.
That's going to be exclusive to our Patreon if you are part of the $5 tier, our Way Too Nice tier, where people are going to be submitting their favorite parody/satire spoof movies. We're going to be talking about them and discussing some of our favorites. So
yeah,
if you are already a part of our Patreon, then join us there after this podcast. And if you're not, consider joining.
Yes, we'd love to have you.
So when was the first time you saw this movie?
Well, okay, so in its entirety in 2020. In its entirety. I've watched bits and pieces and seen clips because it's just so popular. Like, I knew the joke when the woman's freaking out in the seat and they're like, get it together. And they're like slapping her in the line forms, that famous scene.
Right.
I knew that. I knew the Don't Call Me Shirley line. I knew like those recognizable bits.
Things that are just part of our culture that you can't avoid.
Yes, but you can thank quarantine for me finally watching it.
Yeah.
In its entirety.
Well, you watched it with your girlfriend, I remember.
Yeah.
And you came home and you were just telling me, dude, it just has an onslaught of the dumbest jokes I've ever seen in a great way, but like some jokes where you're just like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, some of the jokes are just such a like low-hanging fruit that you just can't believe they just did it.
Yeah, and to be clear, we mean that in the best way. We're not saying these jokes didn't require work.
Oh, people who've seen Airplane know exactly what we mean, though. At least I hope,
100%, yeah, because like it takes skill to do stuff like this that is just inherently very, I think silly's a better word.
Yeah, sure, I can see that. Yeah.
But you saw it in 2020, but since then you've seen it many times. Right?
Yeah, no, I've probably seen it 7 times now in its entirety. Okay. I've watched it so many times.
That's crazy, because the first time I watched it in its entirety was after you came home and you told me you watched it. Same thing as you. I'd seen a couple scenes here and there, but I'd never seen the whole thing. The scenes that I had seen before was the what's your vector, Victor? And
yeah, of course.
And then after you saw it, I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And same reaction, same thing. But I'd only seen it that one time in its entirety until like a couple of days ago for this podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I quote this movie to each other all the time.
I quote it to everyone. Make no mistake. This
like the amount of times that I come up to you and I'm like, Joey, you ever been to a Turkish prison?
Yeah, I know. We get comments a lot with our comedies on things we didn't notice or Easter eggs that we didn't understand, or like, this is a reference to this movie. And this Airplane has an overwhelming amount of jokes and references. There will be 2 jokes going on at the same time in several of the scenes.
And like background stuff going on. Like I could imagine us doing a reaction to this and an onslaught of comments of people just telling us, I can't believe you didn't notice
You didn't catch this, or this is a reference. Fun fact here.
So we still apologize if we don't mention something, but feel free to comment
We
down
cannot
below.
possibly list every single reference in an hour span. There's so much, and that's a compliment to the movie.
But if you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to comment down below. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, then tweet at us.
Yes, and I also can't wait to hear your synopsis on this movie, because Althoff, you like to write up your little synopsis, because I always say, in another life, you were a copywriter for
the back of Blu-ray DVDs.
The back of Blu-rays or poster taglines. I know you have like a collection of poster taglines you enjoy too.
Yeah, I'm a nerd about how movies
You love movie packaging.
Movie packaging. That's a great way to describe it. I think, I read off like movie taglines to you because I think they're so good.
Yeah, and you show me the new Criterion Collection DVDs you get, all that good stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm very much single.
Yeah, just a very roundabout way of saying I'm single. That's not where I was trying to take it, man. I'm so sorry.
All right, cool. So on that note, I'm going to read off the synopsis.
Okay.
Ted Stryker is an ex-fighter pilot who has lost his mojo and quit flying. But when his one true love, flight attendant Elaine Dickinson, puts an end to their days of disco dancing and happy times at the beach, he boards the plane she's working on to save their relationship. Little did he know, this flight will not only test his love, but also his life. With the demise of Jesus Christ. All right, I got this.
Go ahead, you got it.
With the demise of the co-pilots due to a fatal fish dinner, it's up to Ted, Elaine, and an expert doctor to land this airplane.
All right, cool. I like how that's the longest one you've written so far in all the synopsises you've done. It's on airplanes, the one you're like, okay, I'm going to go the hardest.
Yeah, that was very long. As I was writing it last night, I'm like, this is quite long. I need to like cut this down. And then I didn't because I'm like, no, this is perfect.
I'm going to do it. Yeah. Hell yeah.
I'm way too proud of these. But yeah, I think I also had a fun time writing this because I'm just like, oh yeah, this is the plot to Airplane. It's very like, if you read someone this plot, it sounds pretty straightforward. I'm like, oh, this guy who's an ex-fighter pilot, but because of his nerves he quit, and he's trying to get back his one true love. It feels like a romantic drama.
Well, it's basically the plot of 0 Hour, which is the movie that it's parodying.
Okay.
Is apparently, I haven't seen 0 Hour. You probably haven't seen it either.
No, I haven't.
I remember you telling me at least. It's the Zucker brothers themselves call it the serious airplane, or like the not funny airplane.
So that's the movie they based this off of.
Exactly, yeah. Fun fact that, okay, so I don't know if you knew this, but they had a theater troupe, the 3 people who directed and wrote this movie.
Abrams and the Zucker brothers.
Yeah.
Right.
And they would record VHSs of late night television to watch commercials and obtain ideas for sketches. That was a thing they used to do.
Wow.
And yes, that was like kind of their weird thing. So that's why there's a lot of like, I guess there's a lot of commercial Easter eggs in Airplane. There's a lot of jokes that are like nods at commercials at the time. But they accidentally recorded 0 Hour in the process and they watched it.
Talk about fate.
I know. And that's basically what Airplane became.
I think because of Airplane, they were able to do like a lot of other projects. We mentioned at the top of the show of how important these spoof movies are to us. And I kind of wanted to break down a little bit with you what makes them so great. Specifically, what makes Airplane so great. Mm-hmm. And I have this quote from you specifically. Yes, I quoted you.
You quoted me? I'm going to put a citation.
This is a rough quote. I don't know if this is exactly what you said, so I might be misquoting you.
Yeah.
But I remember you told me one time, you were like, yeah, plot doesn't matter as long as it's funny. Like it does.
Yes. It's basically, what I was saying.
I think about that all the time because it holds true to a lot of things. That as long as something's funny, who cares what the story is?
You know what the exact phrasing of it was? You can get away with anything if it's funny. That's the way I phrased it. Yeah.
Oh my God, yes.
And look how excited you get from that. But we learned that in school when I was studying screenwriting and stuff. Mm-hmm. We used the flashback scene from Superbad when Jonah Hill's character couldn't stop drawing dicks.
Right.
That whole scene. Because we basically acknowledge in class that scene never comes back in any way in Superbad.
Which, as a reminder to our listeners and viewers, it basically does this entire cutaway of Jonah Hill narrating how as a kid he used to love drawing penises.
Yeah.
And it would cut to all these like intricate drawings of dicks.
Yeah.
And doing different things. And it does this in like entire cutaway to it. And it goes on for 2 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the whole poem was supposed to summarize why Jonah Hill's character didn't like the character of Becca. But again, it never really comes back, but it works because it's funny. And we talked about that, and we were just saying, like, being funny is kind of the only exception to, like, following story rules.
Well, I think it's the whole reason why Seinfeld works so well, because Seinfeld, Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld's whole rule with that was no hugging, no learning. That's the thing that they used to always say, and that's because each episode was just stacked with jokes, and they had, I mean, it's not like they didn't have structure. Of course, each episode followed a story, 3-act structure, all that stuff, but it didn't really matter because it was just stacked with jokes.
Yeah.
Which is what makes the first point I have in what makes a good spoof movie. It's a joke per second.
Yeah. If there's a movie that's aggressive with jokes, it is like it's one of the, and then people have said this in comment sections too, and this is true for me. I'm sure it's true for you that every time I watch it, there's like another little thing you pick up on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like even if it's a small background thing or some writing on the wall or some, like a little detail of some sort.
Like in this watch too, I mean, you've seen it, you said almost 7 times.
Yeah.
You might have missed stuff like this viewing as well.
Yeah, which we'll get to because I actually wrote on my phone.
Some stuff you caught.
Yeah, like new jokes. Like either jokes that I didn't catch before or jokes I forgot about.
Yeah, things that I was focusing on in this viewing was because the whole like the big jokes that we quote all the time of, like I already mentioned, what's your vector, Victor, or don't call me Shirley. That stuff, like when that came in the movie, I was like, nice. The stuff that I was really laughing at were the little details.
Yeah.
But a joke per second, and also a huge thing that you and I go crazy about, and is props, set pieces, and just silliness that takes effort.
Oh yeah.
We talk like you and I go crazy about that when we watch movies like Austin Powers, and especially Spy Who Shagged Me, where it has Dr. Evil's like lair in the cave.
Yeah.
And it shows like this intricate thing that comes down, these red curtains that comes down when he's trying to make love to
the
Frau.
volcano layer.
The volcano layer. And you and I always go crazy about that scene. We're like, they built that fucking set.
Yeah.
And Airplane has a lot of that.
Oh yeah, I mean probably the best example is when the guy guides the airplane into the airport and it like rips through the window and there's this composite shot of like a miniature ripping through a window compiled with people running away from it and panicking.
I don't want to think about the amount of work such a dumb joke took.
Like, it's this slow motion shot. I'm pretty sure that shot was used in the trailer too. Like you see that and then the title like, airplane like comes up over it. I want to say that happens.
Why do you think we love that so much?
With that particular like style of humor kind of thing?
Well, like silliness that takes effort. Why do you think we respond to that so much?
I think it's because we're so attracted to spectacle in movies in general, and we're used to seeing it done in like, the Spielberg-y way, where it's this
Nolan,
crazy
Spielberg,
Star Wars, all that stuff, and I think seeing it done like with such a stupid punchline, you know what I mean? But they go through all that work for that joke. I don't know. There's something really like, when you can feel the effort and they don't just do it in a throwaway improv dialogue. You know what I'm saying?
There was thought put into it.
Yeah, there's thought and craft put into it just as much as a horror movie or an action movie.
Yeah.
Epic.
And it's not like we're getting artsy-fartsy with it. We're not just like everything has to be great filmmaking. But I think when a joke's really funny and on top of that, you like see that the filmmakers put a lot of work into making something look really silly.
Yeah.
I respond to it a lot. I mean, that's one of the reasons I love Conan so much. Because like in his show, he used to do these like insane bits. People probably remember the masturbating bear, or when he like did a full-on like bloody action sequence with Jackie Chan where he was like he had these squibs that like he was bleeding through his suit. It's stuff like that. I'm like, you put so much work into a bit that's so dumb.
Exactly, yeah.
And it makes me appreciate that more, and it makes it funnier.
Yeah, and people who watch our reactions know we love that stuff too.
100%.
We get so giddy when you're watching like Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Oh, I mean, like Monty Python stuff is a great example of that.
Yeah.
Not to go derail that, because I know we'd love to do an episode on Monty Python eventually.
100%.
But like Life of Brian and Holy Grail, there's some moments of that where I'm like, this is just art, man. Like this is amazing.
Exactly, yeah. And going off of what you said, because I wrote in my notes my own way of phrasing when you said the no hugs, no learning from Seinfeld, that philosophy. I just wrote spoof movies are fuck you movies, kind of. Or like most of them are. Not all of them, they can vary, right? There are movies with satirical elements that are still functioning movies, you know what I'm saying? But most straight spoofs, we're talking like, again, Airplane, Scary Movie, Naked Gun, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
They're more fuck you movies that they're just here purely to make you laugh, and they're not here to challenge anything. They just give you a good time,
Yeah.
And you put it on.
I think there's like a nice level of safety to that, where I'm like, I'm going to watch this and just be laughing. It's hard to pull off. Airplane is a big rarity. Like these movies like Airplane, Holy Grail, they're very rare because to make every joke land so hard and to stand the test of time, it's absurd.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one of the things to me that makes this movie really special and stand the test of time in such a way that's unique to a lot of other spoof movies, because I think a lot of the jokes are very evergreen and stand on their own. They're not very specific to like you had to be there or you had to see 0 hour to understand it.
100%.
Like just the basic, like the cockpit. What is it? Oh, it's a little room in the front where the pilot is.
But that doesn't matter right now.
Yeah, but that's not important right now. Like that's like that joke is completely independent of anything. That it's parodying.
Ham on 5, hold a mayo or whatever.
I don't want to just get giddy and quote things, but it literally makes me laugh every time.
Well, okay. So let's go through some of the stuff. I wrote down some stuff of like these prop set pieces that took a lot of effort for a punchline that quote unquote is so silly or stupid or whatever. When you go to when it cuts away to the Mayo Clinic, right?
Oh yeah,
and you see jars of mayo on the shelf with a heart that's like bouncing from the desk,
and it flies out all over the place from the petri dish.
That prop is so impressive. Like there's like literally a heart beating, And I know because it's the 80s, I know they had to build that. That's not CGI or whatever, And that I always like that's so crazy to me. Like while he's on the phone, you see the heart bouncing in and out of frame.
Oh yeah, I know, and yeah, of course, and even leading up to it when. The intercom tells him to grab the white phone. And he picks up the red phone, and the phone's like, "No, the white phone."
Oh,
so it's just, and then it says like, Captain Over, white phone for you. I got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. God, there's so many things like the fact that like his name is Over, and at first you're like, okay, whatever. You don't even process
Clarence
that.
Over.
Yeah, but at first you don't even process that, right? It's all leading up to the joke of like, what's your over? Like,
yeah, I know. Roger. Their names are Roger, Victor, and Captain Over.
Yeah, and they set
Roger Murdoch.
They set that up without you processing it, and when the joke lands, you're just like, Jesus, that's why their names were that.
It's just my favorite will always be when it cuts to the wide of the plane actually taking off, and you can hear like, "You have radio tower clearance over." That's Clarence Over. Huh? Over. Roger. What? Huh? Who? It's so good.
I have also actual shit hitting the fan.
Oh yeah.
Imagine filming that. Like, I want to be on set when they were filming that. I was just like, okay, no, it has to hit it perfectly.
They had to send some PA or they had to make some sort of prop doo-doo.
And like, yeah, a PA just throwing the shit at the fan. Like, that's a day of work. Like, they have to do that.
I know.
And that's also another thing. Like, the reason why we respond to it is you and I then think about, like, imagine what it was like on set when they were filming a joke like that,
100, exactly, yeah. I'm assuming this one's in the list too, because this is one of my favorite jokes, is the "pour every light you have on the runway."
Yeah, that's on there.
Okay, cool, good. Because I remember you and I, when we watched this movie, we were laughing our asses off together. I'm pretty sure I was a little inebriated during this time.
Sure.
But I remember like I was like dry heaving, just like, did you just picture some PA going in like to some discount furniture store and just buying a shitload of lamps? It's like, no, this is the company card.
I think when you watched it in 2020, that's the first joke you told me about. And since then, you've repeated that joke. I think that's your favorite joke from the movie.
It probably is in terms of like the unique jokes that aren't the obvious ones.
Yeah, pour every light.
I want you to pour every light you got on that runway, and it just cuts
to a bunch of lamps. I have a small one, the glasses on glasses.
Oh,
when Kramer takes off his glasses, he had another pair of glasses.
Yeah.
Plane crashing the terminal. I also have something that like is not our favorite, but I still think is worth mentioning. Mm-hmm. This is a set piece, not a prop, but the whole disco dancing sequence.
Yeah, sure.
Because you and I have talked about how like that sequence goes on for a little too long.
Yeah.
And is maybe not the funniest part of the movie, but when it starts, like I'm like dry heaving because the idea that they had to choreograph that, figure that out,
all these extras, and choreograph a whole like brutal fight scene between two Girl Scouts.
Yeah, I know. And when like the first like 2 minutes of that sequence, I'm like laughing really hard, and then it like drags on a bit.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I wanted to mention it one time, especially the whole like him tossing the suit and it coming back to him.
Yeah.
All that stuff is really great. And also when Elaine, she like Was it Elaine that accidentally stabs the knife to the guy? Or no. What was the guy that stabbed the knife to the man, and then he does like a move that Elaine
he gets
copies?
stabbed in the back, and he tries to gesture that he's getting stabbed, and she sees it, and then she thinks he's just doing a dance move and starts like doing a dance too.
That's right. Kind of wanted to also talk about how, speaking of effort,
Yeah.
actors that are pitch perfect and playing it completely straight.
Oh, well, that's like everyone, basically. Like, they made a point to hire, like, dramatic actors. They did not get comedians for this movie at all.
They got, the biggest comedic actor is Leslie Nielsen.
But he was a drama actor at the time.
That's true.
That's what he did for the movie Forbidden Planet. You know, when he was super young.
Oh,
he was
right.
a drama actor
This
before.
was the movie that kind of, like, changed his career.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't doubt he's done comedies before that. You know, I'm not trying to say this is his very first, but clearly this is his, like, big, massive role. You know, and then he became the comedy guy.
And it's so interesting because outside of these movies, he was also very funny on talk shows.
Yeah. You and I were sending each other videos.
A lot of people already know this, probably already know this, but he used to carry around a fart machine. Mm-hmm. So when he'd do press and interviews, he'd be talking about a movie and it'd be like, it was really hard to make this movie because... And he would just time it perfectly.
And always make the interviewer uncomfortable every time.
And he did it on Conan, and Conan just died laughing, like, because he would time it so well. So it's interesting that like being a comedic actor wasn't his goal.
Yeah,
but he was just born to do it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I saw Naked Gun when I was a little kid before I saw Airplane.
Interesting. Yeah,
I saw when it was probably like 11, I think.
Yeah, I saw Naked Gun for the first time on this channel.
Yeah, exactly. It was really exciting to show it to you. But that was my first Leslie Nielsen, exposure. Then I saw him, funny enough, in Scary Movie 3. And
yes.
And I want to say he was in 3 and 4. He was also in that one movie, superhero movie with Drake Bell, too.
Yeah, he was. Oh my god.
Yeah, he was supposed to be like...
It's called a superhero movie, I think.
Yeah, he was supposed to be like the Uncle Ben. It was like mostly parodying the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man film.
Yeah,
but,
wow. I forgot he was in that, but
yeah,
he shows up 30 minutes into this movie?
Like 40 minutes.
I forgot how late he showed up. Again, he wasn't like the lead. But
he steals the show.
When he shows up, immediately the movie's like...
the movie changes.
Oh my god. Like, his entrance is he's already wearing a stethoscope when the flight attendant asks, like, are you a doctor? I am. And he's already wearing a stethoscope.
I'm mildly spoiling one thing that's in the list of jokes I forgot about, but this is now while we're on Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah, go for it.
When he's examining the woman who's sick... Who was acting? Remember, he reaches his hand out and a tool just appears in his hand because he's a doctor. He just reaches out and someone just drops his tool in his hand.
Oh yeah, and that's when like eggs or like balls are coming out of her mouth.
Yeah, the eggs or whatever. Yeah, that weird egg scene.
I was crying laughing watching this like a couple nights ago. Oh my god. Yeah, because when he shows up again, you're like you just don't stop laughing. He's so good at this. I want to mention the actor who plays Ted Stryker, Robert Hayes.
Oh yeah.
I think he's perfect in it because talk about playing it straight. He feels like him and Julie Haggerty, who plays Elaine. Yeah. They feel like they're in their own romantic drama movie
from like the 60s.
It's so perfect how they play this.
Yeah.
And speaking of Julie Haggerty, I mean, this was her first film role was All That Jazz, which is, what an amazing first film role. But the thing was, her part got cut.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So her first official film role was this movie.
What a way to kick her career off.
And we watched She's the Man on this channel. And remember, you and I were both like, oh my god, we recognize her. And I think it was you that mentioned, oh my god, that's a flight attendant from Airplane. Yeah. And I remember in She's the Man, she was so funny.
Yeah, and it checks out how it played out that way. Like I said, they made a point to get essentially all dramatic actors. Like the Zucker brothers were explicitly telling them to like take this seriously.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And you can see it, right? Like all the actors play it very straight, and that's what makes it funny. Like none of the actors... It almost feels like none of the actors even know that it's funny.
Yeah, you can't let the audience know that you're trying to make a joke.
And yeah,
for this type of movie to work.
And it's very hard to pull off. Like we do not see movies like that anymore. It's very much like...
Especially nowadays. I mean, it was happening a little bit in the early 2000s with Scary Movie.
Sure.
Anna Faris, I think, is a perfect example of someone who, in the modern day... cinema or whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it does that perfectly.
She would have been amazing in a Zucker Brothers movie if she was born earlier.
I think she's underrated as a comedic performer because in those scary movies, she's so good.
Yeah.
And I think she's a big part of why they work so well because she's doing what Leslie Nielsen was doing back then, which is playing it completely straight, but just being absurd. I think she's putting a little bit more English on the ball of just being like, this is funny.
Sure, yeah, I can,
But still, I think she's amazing. I think it's a great comp.
Yeah, I found out that the actor who plays Captain Over didn't really understand the humor when they were shooting it.
That's perfect.
And I know you're kind of counting on that, right?
I'm like so happy he didn't. I mean, like, because I think that makes it better.
Yeah, I know.
It's also kind of just disturbing when he's like, "Oh, no, let Joey stay." So, Joey, ever seen a grown man naked?
Oh my god, I know. You ever watch movies about gladiators? Whatever he says, like what the fuck is that?
Ever watch a movie about gladiators?
Like that joke literally makes no sense. And maybe there's a reference in there that we don't get or something, but I am okay with not understanding it.
To be honest, I don't want the commenters to even explain to me
Yeah,
that
yeah,
joke.
exactly.
Because I find it funny for just being a non sequitur.
This movie hits, the thing that you said about what Monty Python and the Holy Grail does.
Yeah.
Is I remember at the end of our reaction to it when we were doing our discussion, you said this movie is like the purest form of laughter.
Of Holy Grail.
Yeah, you said that
Yes.
about Holy Grail, and I think this 100% applies to this movie too.
Yes. Like, I think same thing what you said, right? A fuck you movie.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like, we're trying to make you laugh. These are just jokes. Fuck you. We don't give a shit about the plot.
Yeah.
Let's just go.
And they throw every type of humor at you. They do physical, funny dancing. They'll do deadpan, dry humor. They'll do, like, puns.
It is, as we're saying all this, I do have to add, though, those last 15 minutes when he's trying to land the plane, I am kind of on the edge of my seat. I'm just...
Oh, yeah, you're still engaged in it.
Invested. So there's a part of me that's still, like, invested in the story, even though the story doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, a big part of this movie is, like, I just want to start listing off jokes, but
I know, right? It's so tempting.
So, I think we should just quickly mention that there's some jokes that really don't hold up that well. Sure. I mean, hold up is a strong word, right? Because...
There are definitely just outdated jokes in there that wouldn't fly now, for sure.
Right, the whole, like, I don't speak jive and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's complicated, right? On one end, it's, like, so ridiculous that you just have to laugh. And on the other hand, you're just like, oh, this wouldn't fly in 2023.
Yeah, in my head, I feel like it's okay to have a little bit of both there. You know what I mean? I guess it's not really up to us to decide what is okay and what isn't within it.
It's not up to us to decide, and it's like, and I'm not really in the mode to have a conversation about, like, what's okay and what's not. I just think it's, like, something that stood out to me.
Worth acknowledging, the movie's not 100% perfect, Crystal, because I have been complimenting of how well it stands the test of time. Not all of it stands the test of time, for sure.
100%. And, you can have your own arguments of whether it does because it's just funny or whether some stuff just wouldn't work today. Whatever. That being said, it is interesting that this movie has just been passed on. Like, people are still watching it, I remember Tarantino was actually talking about how this movie screened at the New Beverly, which is Tarantino's theater in LA that he owns, that he programs, if you guys don't know. But he talked about how, like, they screened Airplane on film, packed house, people were dying laughing.
That sounds awesome.
Yes,
I would kill to go to something like that.
I think they still do Airplane. I know they did Naked Gun a while ago.
Oh, we got to go to that too, man.
Yeah, New Beverly. If you guys are ever in LA, then you should definitely check it out. Me and Chris, we went to go see Spider-Man 2 there. And
I like that movie.
That was a blast because Spider-Man 2 is an amazing movie and we like it, and it was like nice seeing it on screen again. But also because of the meme culture behind Spider-Man 2, it was just like it was kind of like Rocky Horror Picture Show for a second.
Yeah, people were in on certain things that were frequently reused or requoted.
But that being said, it's just like to make that point of this movie has just stood the test of time.
Yeah.
I feel like parents will still be showing their kids this movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And because Airplane was such a big hit at the time, too, I wrote down on a $3.5 million budget, it made $171 million.
Yeah.
This movie was a hit, And the Zucker brothers, basically, it made their careers. bigger than it ever was. But what's interesting is that they were asked to do the sequel, because there is a sequel to this movie. Which, have you seen the sequel?
I have not. I hear not great things about it, for
It's
sure.
hard to do a sequel to this movie.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, I hear it's kind of like the redheaded stepchild in the series.
Yeah, again, it's, for me, it's like impossible to do a sequel to Airplane, which is just near perfect.
The best thing they could have done is something like Naked Gun, like make a completely different movie, but it's still like Naked Gun still feels like a spiritual successor to Airplane.
Because
You know what I'm
it's still the same character. Frank Drebin's still in it.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Leslie Nielsen's still in it, and the same style of humor is very much employed. You know, where it's still spoofing a certain genre of movies in a ridiculous way.
That being said, though, that's a great segue, because Zucker Brothers, they didn't want to do the sequel, but they took the success of Airplane and their clout and created a TV show called Police Squad. And that TV show was successful, and through that they created Naked Gun, which became their next like big franchise.
Yeah, I still need to watch Police Squad. I keep getting it recommended to me because I hear it's just as funny as Naked Gun.
There's one joke from Police Squad that I shared with you a while ago, where it's a clip from it that was like being tossed around Twitter from the show Police Squad, and it was this guy in an office asking Leslie Nielsen's characters like, "How'd you get in here?" And
He said, "Who are you and how'd you get in here?"
"Who are you and how'd you get in here?" And Frank Drebin just responds, "I'm a locksmith and I'm a locksmith."
It's a great Zucker Brothers joke.
It's such a great delivery by him.
Oh yeah.
But I know we didn't do an Airplane reaction, but we did do a Naked Gun reaction, and it was my first time seeing it. It's possibly the hardest I've laughed in a movie reaction. In the first 5 minutes, there's a joke where I laughed so goddamn hard. It was when OJ is in his hospital bed and Frank sits down on the hospital bed and the hospital bed folds on itself. And I like lost my shit. Like you have to like be like, I'm not happy for you.
Like I was borderline worried you weren't gonna breathe.
And yeah, no, it's a great time, and I think it is just interesting that they created a genre of movies.
Yeah.
Like in their own universe.
Yeah. I mean, and it became just, like I said, now there's a whole thing, scary movie. I hate to say
Disaster movie.
Yeah, I hate to bring these movies up, of course, is they just really
they're the redheaded stepchild.
Yeah, you're right. Airplane 2, I won't crap on. I haven't even seen it, but I hear not great things about it. But with that being said, yeah, it did spawn a whole genre of spoof movies. I mean, I don't know, I'm sure Mel Brooks, and are also big credits, and so were Monty Python. Those are also older movies than Airplane.
Of course.
It's worth acknowledging,
Yeah, the Airplane. Zucker Brothers didn't invent the spoof movie.
Yeah.
But there's a specific style to Airplane that did inspire a lot.
Exactly.
And, Peter Farrelly Brothers, who did Dumb and Dumber, there's a quote from them that just says, "I'll tell you right now, if Zuckers didn't exist, there would be no Farrelly Brothers."
Is it pronounced Fairly, by the way?
I
Or is
always-
it Farley?
Oh, it might be Farley.
I thought it was Farley, but now you're making me second guess it.
I don't know. I don't want to look.
Were you
it
gonna Google how to pronounce?
I don't care enough.
But the statement holds true though.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I bet a lot of like comedic directors, comedic filmmakers, or just comedians in general were inspired by what the Zucker Brothers did and what Leslie Nielsen did.
Yeah.
Okay. I was saying this to you off camera while we were taking a break that I feel like we're going really fast.
Okay, well, I mean, I do have some things to add into.
Okay.
We're talking about influence.
Because I was like, are we transitioning to doing our quotes and jokes right now, or do we have some other stuff? But yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, so funny enough, we've cited Scary Movie as like kind of, to me, Scary Movie is kind of the closest thing to like a modernized way of emulating the Zucker Brothers humor.
It's interesting, yeah, because when I look at Scary Movie, I think a lot more of like Mel Brooks, because the way Mel Brooks spoofed like movies and genres of that time. Scary Movie was spoofing a lot of horror movies.
Well, I can get behind that. I'm just talking about like the style of humor and
yeah, especially the way Charlie Sheen would play completely straight, or like other actors.
Yeah, well, Charlie Sheen doesn't come in until the third one. I'm talking about 1 and 2 particularly.
Oh, weird that I mentioned Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Which what I'm getting at though is that ironically enough, David Zucker, one of the Zucker brothers, wrote for Scary Movie 3 to 5.
The worst ones?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, the Wayans brothers were the main ones that did 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I don't know who else wrote them, or who was part of that.
Kind of like that the Wayans brothers were the ones that wrote the best ones and they dropped out. Yeah.
But, yeah, which I just thought that was funny.
It's, speaking of putting a lot of effort into a joke that's really silly. One of our favorite jokes.
Oh my god, dude!
You know exactly.
I know exactly what you're talking
about. Is it the first one or the second one?
Second one.
I love that you know exactly.
Well, the first, because the first scary movie is mostly about slashers, and the second one is about like haunted house movies, like ghosts and stuff.
Right. It's where one of the Wayne brothers literally gets rolled up into a joint. And the joint smokes the Wayne.
Well, it's a giant weed monster. It's a giant marijuana monster.
That's what it is. Okay.
That while he's sleeping, he takes his sheets and rolls him up into a joint effectively, and then lights him. The giant monster basically lights him, and he's just yelling like,
"Oh my god!"
Yeah, he's just yelling, and I think he ends up getting high through it too.
Yeah, and in order to get rid of it, they bring Funyuns and the munchy snacks to divert his attention. Yeah. And you and I were watching that. I'm like, they built that prop.
This giant monster
prop.
This
mechanical weed. I'm like, what's that day like? How much time did that take? How much, what meetings were had?
Yeah, exactly. How to pull this off and how to plan ahead for this.
But
who did they hire to make this happen?
But it's so obvious when I watched that movie that was a practical effect.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me happy. I get giddy about that stuff because it makes it funnier for me. Yeah. But it also makes me appreciate that, yes, great filmmaking is not only for artsy-fartsy movies and about dramas or action movies or whatever. It can be for very silly comedies, too.
Yeah.
We should be putting the same amount of work and effort into very silly things as well as very serious things.
Yeah, people express themselves in many different ways.
And I think the reason I mentioned that, I don't want to be the old man in the lawn guy, but it is a shame that a lot of comedies nowadays are shot in a very boring way, and it's shot reverse shot, and they're mostly doing the Judd Apatow thing. But not all of them are Judd Apatow, so they can't pull it off.
Yeah, a lot of it is just relying on the actors to improv and riff on each other.
Because when Judd Apatow came along, it was this thing of okay, this guy understands comedy, this guy understands improv, and the actors that he's casted also understand improv. Seth Rogen, Jonah Hill, Jason Segel, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But when other people try to do it and they don't understand that improv also has to tell a story, then it just comes off as lazy.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, it's funny. I said scary movie, is one of the closest. Another, I'd hate to say it because you and I have gone back and forth about this a lot, but one of the really closer examples is probably Adam Sandler. Because, he's someone that puts a lot of work into his goofy comedies.
Back in the day especially, I think... okay, I said back in the day, but okay, this is the perfect place for me to talk about it because I don't think I'll ever get to talk about it on this podcast. I think Hoobie Halloween is a great example of this.
I was giving you an opening to talk about Hoobie Halloween.
I'm so excited. Okay, I know I'm never going to talk about this in a podcast. I love Hoobie Halloween. I'm also an Adams.
You watch it every year.
Yeah. Well, since it came out, so I've seen it 3 Halloweens in a row now. And it's a tradition for me.
Yeah.
I force you to sit down and watch it with me one time. And I think that movie also, if you watch that movie closely, it's shot really well. And they do some things with this thermos, which is basically a Swiss Army knife thermos. And I'm I could tell they put a lot of work into that one prop.
A lot of creativity and care.
Yeah, and there's some Adam Sandler movies that go through the same issue that I just talked about, the grown-ups movies where it's okay, they're just in a cabin somewhere just having a blast and there seems to be no script here.
Yeah.
But I think another close comp is the heyday of the Adam McKay comedy.
Oh yeah. That's probably our generation.
Our generation's Airplane is Anchorman.
Yeah. Anchorman, absolutely.
You look at Anchorman, there are some insane... I mean, talk about an insane set piece that probably took a lot of work. The big fight between the newscasters.
Of course, that's the iconic scene where they had to get horses, they lit a man on fire, there's a man being dragged through a net across between horses.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
And a joke per minute. I mean, you could just listen... I mentioned Anchorman, and you guys probably already have 40 images that are just popping in your head.
Sex Panther.
Yeah. Sex Panther, the whole erection in the middle of the newsroom when he's talking to Christina Applegate.
Go fuck yourself, San Diego. All that good stuff.
Yeah.
all that good stuff. We can go on for hours about Anchorman, but
But I think it's important to mention when it comes to influence and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Austin Powers is a huge one.
yeah. But have you seen the music video to "Learn to Fly" by the Foo Fighters?
No.
Oh, okay. That's actually a well done Airplane homage.
Oh, okay.
The whole music video. I mean, I'll show it to you after this or something sometime. But it's basically like the Foo Fighters boarding a plane, and it cuts. The Foo Fighters are also playing as different characters in it.
Oh, cool.
And it opens though with Tenacious D, like literally Jack Black and Kyle Gass, like poisoning the coffee supply or something.
Wow, Tenacious D is in a Foo Fighters?
Yeah, they're in the opening of a Foo Fighters video. They don't speak or anything because it's like in the opening and it's all pantomimed.
Okay.
But I think the Foo Fighters like turn down the coffee and drink liquor instead, but everyone else starts passing out, and then they have to go and land the plane. They follow the same plot structure as Airplane.
Okay, that's really cool. I think also Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he did a commercial for like an airline. And
that's perfect.
He played Roger Murdoch. He comes back as the character, his iconic character. It is like possibly the oddest joke I've ever seen, which is like, okay, he's playing a character, and then suddenly this kid breaks him into being like, listen, tell your dad about the lake. Like,
how he criticizes his play style.
And I'm like, okay, so he's admitting that he's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, so he's he undercover as a pilot? Like,
yeah, he's just pretending to be a pilot and doesn't want anyone to find out.
That's a prime example of what you said recently, which was like, this is a great fuck you movie.
Exactly, yeah, the movie does not care.
We don't give a shit, this is going to be funny. Okay, so we're finally at the section that we've been teasing this entire podcast, the quotes and jokes, which I love saying.
Yeah, we should hold on to that for future comedy podcasts we do. Well, quotes and jokes.
The thing was that the last podcast, Raiders, we ended the podcast by being like, let's talk about the ending. Mm-hmm. I don't really want to talk about the ending.
This isn't that type of movie at all.
But I want to talk about, I want to have a section where we can just have a little fun and have a giggle fest over some of our favorite jokes. You like that, huh?
Yeah,
Giggle fest?
Yeah, you sound like a boss. Like guys, I just want to do a little icebreaker here, and
I have an issue where I go into like work corporate mode very quickly, and that's a big reason why you're here. Or like I would be like the Zoom Slack guy in a corporate.
Come on, man.
Well, you do ground me a little bit more, I will say.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just gonna be honest here. Okay, so how do you want to do this?
Yeah, okay. So did you just write quotes that you liked? Your favorite quotes?
And I'm down to talk about them a little bit, but yeah, I basically did that. And these quotes will kind of hopefully spark some conversation about like what this joke and the context of the joke.
Cool. Because I went about it a little bit differently.
Okay.
I wrote my favorite quotes or jokes that I either forgot about or didn't notice before. Because this movie has so many jokes and there are so many memorable jokes. But then there's a couple when you watch it again, where you're like, oh my god, I forgot about that part. That made me laugh because you just didn't expect it.
Okay, cool. So I'll go first, and I'll just go. And if there's some crossover, then we could just mention that.
Sure.
Cool. So the first, this is an interaction, and it's at the control center. And it's one of my favorite characters, Johnny, that's a bit more flamboyant.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, Johnny, what can you make out of this? It's like, this? Well, I can make a hat or a brooch or a pterodactyl?
Yeah. When he's like, yeah. And, good shit. When he has like the newspaper or whatever it was.
Yeah. All his lines are so good.
Oh, yeah.
He like pops in here and there and just like, get out of here, Johnny.
When they ask him to describe the plane, he's like, it's big and it looks like a giant Tylenol.
All right. Okay, so obviously, I mean, come on. It's an entirely different kind of flying altogether. It's an entirely different kind of flying. When you were watching Airplane for this podcast, I called you in the middle of your viewing when you were watching it with your girlfriend because I had a question for you for an edit.
Yeah.
And when you picked up the phone, you immediately said it's an entirely different kind of flying
altogether.
Because you were watching it. You're like, dude, it's so dumb. It's so great.
Yeah.
Give me ham on 5, hold the mayo, which we discussed.
Yes.
Opening the cockpit door. I just want to tell you both good luck. We're all counting on you.
Oh, yeah, that's the classic, yeah.
And then the second time it opens, camera shaking.
Yeah, and then he says it again a third time after they land.
Oh, man. Okay, and then we have I already said this. Joey, have you ever been to a Turkish prison?
Yeah.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Oh yeah, well, especially the escalation of it, where it's like I picked a wrong week to quit smoking.
Oh yeah. I picked the wrong week to quit amphetamines. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, exactly.
We already mentioned I want every light you can get poured onto that field.
Yeah, okay.
Something that I haven't gotten written here, but this is my last one, is Jonathan Banks, Mike Ehrmantraut himself, is in this movie. He's on a phone call, and in front of him is this like circular looking screen, and next to him are a bunch of these circular looking screens. And if you look in the background, someone like is opening what looks like that circular looking screen, but it ends up being a door, and they just pull out their laundry from it.
Yeah, I know exactly.
It's one of my favorite jokes because I didn't catch it the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
It was like my second time I was like, is that guy fucking doing laundry?
Yeah.
Like, oh man, it's so good. I mean, there's so many others, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Good shit.
Yeah.
As you like to say, as I like to say.
The whole like the nun reading Boy's Life.
The Boy's Life and the little boy reading the Nun's Life magazine at the same time.
Oh god, there's so many.
Oh yeah, I know.
Okay.
Cream, would you like some cream for your coffee? No thanks, I take it black. Like my man.
Like a little girl saying to a little boy.
But okay, so these are jokes that, like I said, that I forgot about.
Yes.
One of them is right before the flight when Stryker is like clearly having a lot of anxiety. He has to get up and goes over to, and like takes a breather. And the blonde flight attendant goes up and is like, "Excuse, are you all right, sir?" And he's like, "I haven't flown in years." And she just kind of stands there and then just walks away. Like no reassurance or it says nothing.
Well, everyone on the flight is just so bummed out by Stryker.
Yeah, I know. As soon as he's telling the story to the old lady, how she rolls her eyes and takes her glasses off.
Everyone wants to commit suicide.
Which it escalates to obscene levels.
Yeah.
Going off of that, though, James Hong makes a cameo.
Oh my god.
We didn't talk about that yet, but what the fuck is he doing
here?
Well,
that was the thing. Like, he would show... He's
been sprinkled throughout all of cinema.
He's credited in so many movies, and also a lot of video game voice roles. And it's just kind of amazing that like the guy showed up in an Oscar-winning movie. He showed up in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, and he's amazing in that movie.
He's still working. Yeah, it's amazing. He's a treasure.
Okay, so another joke that I don't think about a lot, that it always makes me laugh every time I watch it, is when Captain Over shifts gears in the plane like he's popping a clutch or in a car.
Yeah,
like right before the plane takes off.
That's true. That like kind of went by me a little bit, but that's funny. Yeah.
This one also, the weird zoom-ins of the mom in that family when she's about to
He never drinks coffee at home.
Yeah, exactly. And I found out that those are parodies of Folger commercials, which I, at the time, I didn't know about. I don't know what the commercials are, but I found out that they're spoofs of Folger's commercials for coffee. But yeah, then it ends up getting weird when she's like, he never vomits at home. When he's straight up poisoned. Also, Ted Stryker's painting, right? His name's Ted, right?
Ted Stryker, yeah.
Ted Stryker's painting while he's in the hospital.
Oh, yeah. And then it turns out some guy's actually modeling for him.
Yeah, and he with his leg folded over, holding like a baby with an explosion behind him.
He's like, all right, take 5.
Okay, so then when the plane goes through some turbulence or when it's rocking around, and the flight attendant like falls over and like smacks someone in the face with like a plate of whipped cream. You can just see it there.
Yeah, it's on a wide. I think someone said, I forget who it said, I wish I knew so I wouldn't be like quoting like someone random or whatever. But someone said like comedy happens in wides and drama happens in close-ups.
Oh, okay, that's good.
And some of our favorite comedies, like the jokes are in these wides.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Think of Life of Brian. Think of the Mel Brooks stuff, Blazing Saddles. That all that is.
A lot of wide shots, yeah. Also when Leslie Nielsen is asking like what the dinner options were, and they're like, well, we had steak and fish. He's like, oh yes, I remember. I had lasagna.
Yes. And he like throws it away. Like it's not. He doesn't make a point of saying it. He just throws that joke away. It's just so funny.
And then this one also, going back to turbulence, whenever it happens, the plane starts rocking around, you see that one lady doing her lipstick and smears it across her face.
But she's, bless her, she's still trying.
And then it cuts back to her later, still trying to do makeup, and it looks horrible on her.
Yeah.
And then the last one is when they're doing that like really chaotic wide of the control tower.
Sure.
And then you see the conjoined twins. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
When he gives them each 2 different instructions or directions to go, and they go separately, they try to like split apart. It's like, you go upstairs to this, and you go down to the lower
But again,
deck.
they throw that joke away because he's already moved on to someone else, and you just see it happen in the background.
Exactly.
I'm kind of disappointed because I know you're trying to mention jokes that like caught your eye this time.
Yeah.
But the joke I feel like that makes you laugh the hardest, you didn't mention.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, in terms of favorite though.
Oh yeah.
Are you talking about the smoking or not
Yeah,
smoking?
yeah.
No, I was gonna get to that. That's probably when you said the pour every light is my favorite joke. I actually think this is my favorite joke.
Which is
when he's buying the ticket and the lady asks him, smoking or non-smoking? And Stryker just says, smoking, please. And then he gets a literal smoking ticket. It's the greatest thing I've ever seen. It's so fucking stupid.
talk about a prop, like
I know, and it's still smoking when he's in the plane when he takes it out.
because he ordered smoking. Oh god, it's just bless that movie.
God bless that movie.
Okay, I think that's it. That about wraps her up.
Yeah.
Cool. It's just so much fun. I'm so glad after our fight about whether or not we should do this movie, we ended up deciding on doing it because like this podcast kind of just flew by.
Yeah. This is probably the smoothest pod we've ever done.
So if you're part of our Way Too Nice to tier, you'll join us in the after show where we talk about some of our audience's favorite spoof movies, but our favorites as well. I know we mentioned it a little bit here, but we're going to go deeper into it.
Yeah. It's a more casual environment. So right now the review for Airplane's done, and now we're just going to kind of hang out.
But other than that, thank you so much for watching.
And thank you so much for listening. Sorry for interrupting your outro. I apologize. I'm hyper.
Never do that again. Stay nice, dudes.